And welcome back to Lantern Corps. Today's Lantern Corps comes to us from Zombie Demon. Who asked the question, what is Lantern Corps of Seras Victoria? And I'm gone now. Seras Victoria. And, yeah, I mean, I've done Alucard, might as well do Seras. Seras is a very unique case, because if we're looking at Seras throughout the majority of the series, but also like near the end, she kind of runs the gamut a little bit of emotional spectrum here. Right out of the way, let's get it out of the way that yes, death could work for her, 100%, because she is a vampire. She is technically dead, though more closely put, she's the undead, but she's technically dead. So death could obviously work, but there's a lot of others on the list that could work. Now, let me get one out of the way. Will, for instance, is one that could work. That was not supposed to happen. But yeah, Will is one that can work, definitely, because throughout the majority of the series, her goal is to overcome the fear of what has happened to her, the world around her, and embrace who she is at this point, a real effing vampire. And she does. So, and she basically has the will to keep going at this point and just never back down. And yeah, I think Will could definitely work for her. Rage, I don't see. Now, I say this as someone who definitely sees the blood rage she goes into multiple times and like the revenge she takes for Pip, all those. But that's not at her core what motivates her and drives her. In instances in the series, kind of like with Naruto, for example, whenever he had the Fox influence in him, at those moments he could probably qualify for rage, because that's what kind of just was driving him at those times. Same thing here. At those moments, that's what could drive her. But unfortunately, that's not what is driving her core personality throughout the majority of the series. Normally, she's very sweet, kind, lovable, all that. So unfortunately, I could not include rage. What I could include, though, what the hell is going on here? Sorry, my thing is being weird today. Fear is definitely one that can make the list. This is because due to that near the end, she became a true vampire and scared the crap out of Zoran Blitz, as well as all of her men. And yeah, at that point now, she was an extremely frightening individual. And, that would carry through until, much later, where she is she is like the Alucard of the group now at that point. Whereas Heigl was the Alexander Anderson, up until Alucard actually came back. Now, I would not say love is on the list, because nothing she did is out of love. Although she could argue she became a police officer because of the love she had for her parents and didn't want that to happen to someone else. You could make that argument, certainly. But I don't think I would count that as love. I think it's more a duty to prevent it from happening for anyone else kind of scenario. And while she definitely had affection and liked Pip, and maybe there could have been something there, that's not ultimately what motivates her. Like, Pip, in theory, loved her more than he loved him. And whether you call it love or not, lust, whatever. But I wouldn't say that Sapphire really works. Nor would I say Avarice is a good option either. And I think it's kind of obvious based on the character why Avarice doesn't frickin' work. This is not a greedy person. Seras is actually very not self-serving. She is very selfless. She does not want for much, and she just wants to help and be of service. And she is, and she's happy with that. Now, one that does work in my mind, and what is going on right now, is compassion, I think. I think she is arguably one of the most compassionate individuals of the Hellsing organization. She definitely will show that she cares more than anything else. I think she shows that with Flying Geese, how she wanted to help them out greatly, and then they'll help everyone else out when shit was going on. I think this one's probably the least likely, just because I think everything else on this list kind of supersedes this one. But I think it's a candidate for certain. Last but not least, we have Hope, and I think this one is also the least likely at this point. Although you could think, because once Alucard came back, I think that would be all the hope that was left. She always had faith, hope that Alucard would come back, and he did. For over 30 years, she had that. So you could make an argument for that. Plus, she had a hope to maybe be something other than a monster. But I think the big part of Hope is the level of faith she had in Alucard. So unfortunately, Hope and Compassion, while possible, I think fall to the end of the spectrum here. And for obvious reasons, she's not a White Lantern of life. She's not a Gold Lantern of happiness. There is an argument to be made an Ultraviolet Lantern of shame. Again, it's never been proven that that's what the Lantern Corps of the Ultraviolets was powered by, but it's heavily implied that was what it was. I don't have a graphic for the Shame Lantern Corps. I have one for the Gold, surprisingly, but not the Ultraviolets. But yeah, and because she was ashamed of being a monster and didn't want to accept the fact she was a vampire until she eventually embraced it, and that shame would go away. So early in the series, she could have a Shame Lantern, an Ultraviolet Lantern, but later on, not so much. So that really just brings us down to our last candidates. We have Death, we have Fear, we have Death, and we have Will. I think I'm actually going to take Death out of the... All these, I think, are actually equal, honestly. Like, equal for the taking. But I'm going to take Death out of the equation. Seras, unlike Alucard, who probably would embrace this ring, Seras probably would just be like, nope, don't want it, and just, ignore it. Like, she doesn't want... I don't think she's just different in mentality than someone like an Alucard is. So for that reason, I think she would deny it. Like, again, I always play the scenario. If the remaining candidates, all came at Seras at the same time, what ring would basically go to her first more than anything else, or what ring would she accept more? Fear versus Will? I'm going to say Will is probably the more likely between the two. And the reason for this is basically the character arc of Seras throughout the story. She is definitely a scary individual and still would scare the piss out of most people. But that isn't who she is by the end. That's not who she is all day ever. She isn't Alucard in that regard, where Alucard definitely could be a Fear Lantern just naturally. She is not a natural fit for the Fear Lantern Corps, despite the fact that she is feared on some level. Whereas Will, she's a more natural fit for it because she had to overcome all those obstacles, great fear, the stigmas around her, so she could rise up and be who she was meant to be at that point. And I think Will just fits that better. So for my money, Will, I'll go Fear second, I'll go Death third, then the remaining two, I think I'll go with Compassion because she just carries that throughout the series a bit longer than the Hope. And then Hope falls to the wayside at number 5. That is, however, my opinion. What do you think Seras Victoria's Lantern Corps is? Let me know in the comments below. But until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And I'll see you folks for the next one. Have a good one.